turn my microphone on here so folks online can hear me. So just to repeat that for the folks online that may not have been able to hear, there's several bills that are either identical or nearly identical to other measures that we're going to take up. And having spoken with the patrons, we're going to take by House Bills 1141, House Bill 1141, House Bill 35, House Bill 36, House Bill 178, and House Bill 198. And so if I could have a motion to have those pass by. Second? Very good. All in favor? Aye. And those bills are passed by. Now, we've got several measures as well. I was hoping to start with Delegate Webert's bills, but he is not here, does not appear just yet. So could we start with, let's see, Delegate Campbell, House Bill 34. Tell us about your fine bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, House Bill 34 is very simple. Is to remove the drop boxes from the election process. In talking to my registrars, this is probably one of the biggest problems they had in how to secure them, where to put them, and things of that nature. And their comments to me was, if you could get rid of them, it would be a big help.
All right, thank you, Delegate Campbell. Any questions from the committee? Anyone online to speak in favor of the bill? I don't see anyone signed up for that. How about anyone in the room to speak in favor of House Bill? I've got have a member of the committee here. Let's see. Delegate Venable.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question for the patron, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Delegate Valkenburg.
Mr. Chair, I would ask Delegate Campbell if he thinks that the 2021 election was fraudulent and we should investigate whether Glenn Youngkin really won, since it strikes me that in his neck of the woods, if drop boxes really are fraudulent, they probably helped the current sitting governor.
Mr. Chairman, I wear hearing aids and I could not hear his question.
Well, I'm actually going to rule that that's not a germane question because that was not attributable to the to the bill. So we're going to move on with that. Anybody online to speak? Again, first of all, anybody in the room to speak in favor of the bill? Is there anyone online to speak against the bill? I think we have Ms. Pamela Berg. Ms. Berg, are you online and ready to go this morning?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Good morning, my name is Pamela Berg. I'm speaking on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Virginia. The League opposes HB 34. Last year, the League testified in support of HB 1888, which codified the placement of drop boxes. We continue to support drop boxes as a service to voters. Not all voters cast absentee ballots by mail or in person. Some desire the assurance or timeliness of hand delivery. Some lack a residential address or reliable mail service. Some voters do not have stamps. Some cannot vote in person during polling hours due to work, family responsibilities, or illness. The drop box still allows these voters to participate in our democratic process and know that their ballots are secure. Detailed guidance governs permissible containers. All drop-off locations must be under either physical or video surveillance constantly. Ballots are collected daily by authorized individuals only, with strict provisions to safeguard the ballots at all times and maintain proper chain of custody. No ballot can be counted unless it's inside the security envelope provided, so that once the ballot is processed, the voter cannot vote again. Drop-off locations were a great convenience to voters and a safe and secure way to cast a ballot. We ask the committee to reject HB 34. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Berg. And any other comments? Any other comments from the committee?
Move to report House Bill 34.
Right. I have a motion properly seconded to report House Bill 34. Please vote on the electronic voting board. And the clerk will close the roll, and House Bill 34 reports the vote of 6-3. Thank you, Delegate Campbell. Very good. All right, now we'll move on to House Bill 39. Delegate Scott, this is your bill. Do you want to stay there or do you want to come up? I'll give you the choice.
I'll just stay here.
Okay, very good.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of the committee for giving me an opportunity to speak to my bill this morning. This bill, just right out the gate, is not about voter suppression or the 2021 election, okay? This is a direct result of numbers and data and local registrars and their requests. Just looking at my election, and now, granted, not every election was the same, with 45 days of early voting, on average, you had just over 100 votes cast each day in my district at the beginning of that early voting. Towards the end, you had over 1,000. That's 10 times the amount of votes cast. What was happening is we were putting an undue strain on our local registrars' offices where they were having to staff these various locations. Some jurisdictions, like Fauquier County, they had 3 different voting locations. Eventually to meet the demand later on, but at the very beginning, that was just one satellite location they had staffed. And so if you just look at the numbers and the data, there is absolutely no need to have that expenditure from the localities by requiring 45 days of early voting and not providing any state funds to help them with this. It puts an undue strain. And so that was the reason. One of our local election officials wanted to speak this morning, but was unable to sign up, and she submitted a public comment, and you can read that online, but I just want to point out a couple things here. It was Paula Calais who submitted it, and she's been an election officer in Spotsylvania County for 11 years. She firmly supports 14 days with the Saturdays because of the numbers and the resources, and it's just not financial resources, it's also people. Finding people to man the locations, be there to greet people, check them in. It's all in addition to the regular duties of the registrar's office. And so that's the bill.
All right, thank you, Delegate Scott. And any questions from the committee?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Delegate Ranson.
To the chairman, do you also open this up for extended hours for voters that are not able to meet that 9 to 5 time frame?
The bill right now is presented as 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
And Delegate McGuire.
I'd like to offer a friendly amendment that we make at those hours, 9 to 5.
Mr. Chairman, I would reject that amendment.
So we have a motion, we have an offer to reject that because I think the purpose is try to extend those hours out from 9 to 5 to 7 to 7 to make it a little bit more convenient. So, okay, thank you, Delegate McGuire. Any other questions from the committee? All right, very good. Do we have any folks in the audience that would like to speak in favor of House Bill 39? Don't see any. So online, I see that we have Dr. Clara Wheeler. Ms. Wheeler, are you online? Welcome this morning.
Yes, sir. Good morning. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to this bill. This is a bill that will enable the registrars and the communities to have in-person absentee early voting at a time when most people indeed have used this advantage to be able to vote not on election day, but vote in person. The tremendous hardship and the cost for the in-person absentee voting for 45 days has not been quantitated. Let me repeat that. There is no data that's been collected to show the entire cost of 45 days of in-person voting. But registrars will tell you that as the delegate has pointed out, it's very difficult to get people to work for 45 days. Consequently, people are being overworked. They're working really more days and more shifts than they would like to, but they're trying to fulfill the need of the current law. By reducing the number of days, more people can work in the in-person absentee voting in 14 days. As the delegate has expanded the hours from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., people can go before work, after work, during work, depending upon their hours, and the cost will be reduced greatly. Again, most people vote in the last 2 weeks, including the Saturdays before the election. I fully support this bill as not only a good service to the community, because it will be at least 12 hours a day, every day for 14 days, and it will reduce the cost to the communities. Thank you very much for supporting this bill.
All right, thank you, Ms. Wheeler. And now we have Ms. Mary Ivy. Welcome to the committee, Ms. Ivy.
Thank you. I just want to echo what Dr. Wheeler said. I know one of the challenges is getting enough election officials for the 40-day election season. And I think 14 days is long enough. Again, the resources for smaller counties like mine of Clark County is a huge strain. And again, I've worked as election official and see the difference in the number of people that showed up in the early days, where some days we only had one or two toward the end. I just also like to make the comment that, deer season in Virginia is only 2 weeks. So thank you for the time.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Ivy. Delegate Van Valkenburg, I believe you have a question.
Just speaking to the bill at the appropriate time.
Okay, we will come back to you if you hit that request again. All right, any people in the audience speaking speaking against the bill? Don't see any. I do have 3 online speaking against. Mr. James Nix, are you with us this morning?
Yes, I am, Mr. Chairman. Thank you
Mr.
very
Nix,
much
welcome to the committee.
speak. I'm a member of the Charlottesville Electoral Board, and I'm speaking this morning on behalf of the Virginia Electoral Board Association. VEBA opposes this bill because compressing the early voting period from 45 days to 14 really only allows 10 or 11 days for in-person early voting. This will lead to long lines and inconvenience to the voters, especially, it's very popular. The early voting has become more popular. VEBA isn't wedded to 45 days, but compressing it to effectively 10 or 11 days we think is making it too tight. We're also concerned that the requirement for consecutive 12-hour shifts by the registrar's office personnel would likely lead to quite a hardship for those personnel, particularly in rural jurisdictions with very small staffs. If Sunday voting is allowed, which is optional now, then there would be 11 consecutive 12-hour shifts, 12-hour workdays. We think that's an unreasonable and unhealthy demand. Furthermore, this would complicate election officer training and other vital election preparation that must take place during that final 2 weeks before the election. So VEBA urges that this not be approved. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Nix. Now we have Sammy Watson.
Hi, I'm Sammy Watson, Field Coordinator with Homke Center. We work with Asian American voters across the state, and we oppose House Bill 39. Data shows that Asian American voters use early voting methods, including in-person early and absentee by mail, significantly more than any other racial and ethnic minority group. In Virginia in 2020, AAPI voter turnout increased by over 20%, due in part to making absentee voting more accessible. With this massive increase of Asian American voter turnout and use of early and absentee voting, restricting those methods would limit Asian American turnout and participation in our democracy. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Watson. And again, Ms. Berg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The League opposes HB 39. The 45-day early voting period is important to people who work long hours, multiple jobs, commute long distances, care for children, or care for their elderly family members or other reasons. There's no discernible purpose in depriving the voters of this convenience and making it harder to vote. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Berg. Now, Delegate Van Valkenburg, you want to speak to the bill?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, first I'll commend Delegate Scott for the expanded hours. I think those are great, and I'm certainly not going to accuse him of voter suppression. But you're welcome. But I think when we talk about this issue a lot, and to Delegate Scott's point about more do it towards the end, and yeah, of course, right? That's, I think, mathematically, you can prove that in every district probably, but there still are thousands of Virginians who are voting in those earlier times. And we end up talking a lot in this committee about the workload of local governments, but of course local governments work for people and the citizens of Virginia. And voting, of course, is the most core duty that the average citizen does, and I don't think it's much to ask them to make voting accessible. And so I would hope that we would keep the 45 days. I think we just had record turnout. I think it went well. We have a report that shows it was one of the safest and most secure elections in Virginia history. You guys won, even with that expanded turnout. And so I think Virginians like it. I think it works. I think we've been able to show that the localities can handle it. And so I would hope we would keep 45 days. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Thank you, Delegate. And committee operates by motion.
Move to report.
Have a proper motion. It's been properly moved and seconded to report House Bill 39. If we will vote on the electronic voting board. And the clerk will close the roll. And House Bill 39 reports on a vote of 6-3. All right, next up we have House Bill 177. House Bill 177, so we have Delegate Bloxham. Tell us about your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It simply just removes the witness signature on an absentee ballot, but to verify it, the voter would need to put down his last four of the social and his birth date. The same information you have to do to verify if to put somebody on a ballot.
Okay. Very straightforward.
Yes,
very
sir.
Good. So very, very simple and straightforward bill. So any questions for the patron from the committee?
Mr. Chairman, question.
Delegate Adams?
Can you explain the reason for removing the signature requirement? I can understand why you would want to add additional information, but why we'll remove the signature?
At least in my district anyway, it's about 4 years ago, there was a lady who actually got about 400 absentee ballots, and the signatures were extremely close. So the investigation never went any further than that, but the registrar made a comment to me to win big, because she kind of knew what was going on, and I went, okay, now I have no problem with winning big, and it just kind of faded away. But it happened in a couple races like that. So I just think this is a true way to verify a person's identity when they send in an absentee ballot.
Other questions from the committee? Delegate Reed.
Mr. Chair, question for the patron.
Delegate Reed.
So, Delegate Bloxham, so then the intent would be that when the absentee ballot arrives, instead of the election officials trying to validate a signature, they would be able to match the last four of the Social Security number with the birth date and go.
Yes, sir, Delegate Reed. The same process you'd use to verify a candidate to be on the ballot. It's the same information they have, so they have it. It's clean, it's concise, and it just moves. I think it will move very quickly.
Okay. All right, anyone in the audience to speak in favor of the bill? All right. Seeing none, we do have two online. Mr. James Nix, are you still with us, Mr. Nix?
Yes, I am.
Welcome
Thank
back.
you, Mr. Chairman. VIVA actually supports this bill. I'm an electoral board member from Charlottesville representing VIVA, the Virginia Electoral Board Association, this morning. We believe that this actually enhances election security. There's no way to verify those signatures. They're just an illegible scribble in many cases. But putting the voters, requiring the voter to put their final four of the social and their date of birth as an alternative actually increases the likelihood that this can be verified by the registrars. Adding this option was a recommendation of the bipartisan Department of Elections work group last summer that addressed this issue. I was a member of that committee, and I can tell you that this bipartisan committee almost unanimously, virtually unanimously, supported this option because it does increase election security. There's no requirement on the signature for legibility or the citizenship, age, residency, voter registration status, none of that for the witness. And you can't even read the signature, and so it can't be verified. we feel it's important to note that the registrars can verify this date of birth and social security, and for that reason, Viva supports this bill.
All right, thank you, Mr. Nix. And Ms. Pamela Berg, I believe you had comments on this bill as well.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. The League of Women Voters of Virginia supports HB 177. We applaud the removal of the witness requirement because many voters living alone do not have ready access to a witness or have reasons, such as health reasons, to avoid contact with others. Also, there are already numerous safeguards in place to ensure that the ballot is sent to and returned by the voter. We litigated this issue, ultimately achieving a settlement whereby the witness requirement was waived for the duration of the health emergency. No notable problems ensued. While this bill does include a requirement to include both the last 4 digits of the Social Security number and the date of birth, neither of which we consider necessary, the League recognizes these 2 requirements as a reasonable compromise. We would further suggest that the bill be amended to include for the approximately 400 registered voters in Virginia who lack a Social Security number, the option to furnish a unique identifier. This option is offered in a similar bill in Senate SB 273. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Berg. All right, anyone else to speak for or against this measure? And again, the committee operates by motion.
Chairman.
Oh, I'm sorry, Delegate Van Valkenburg.
Mr. Chair, just quickly speaking to the bill.
Delegate Van Valkenburg.
Last year when the subcommittee created that work group, I think this is exactly what it was looking to do, was to find consensus around this, and I think this is a great measure that'll help make our elections more secure, and I look forward to voting for it.
Yeah. Thank you, Delegate Van Valkenburg. And Delegate Adams.
And I had a follow-up question for the patron. Again, clarification on whose signature we're talking about, because I think there were some questions about comparing signatures.
The witness signature and the voter signature was extremely close in the previous election on about 400 ballots.
So this legislation would remove the requirement for
the witness signature, yes, sir. The voter would still have to sign. He'd have to put his last 4 of the social and his birth date, which are all verifiable by the registrar.
And what information is required of the witness then?
There is no witness. This is the ballot would go to the voter. The voter would vote, sign, and put his information on there. When it goes back to the registrar's office, the registrar could verify the voter because of the social and the birth date that they have on record.
So this legislation removes any witness?
Yes, sir.
All right, any additional questions? Committee operates by motion. Have a motion to report? Do we have a second? And the bill fails to report for lack of a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Next up, we have House Bill 196. Delegate Weber, are you with us? I believe you have arrived.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 196. Sorry. So basically, 196 seeks to repeal the permanent absentee voter list. It doesn't seek to address any of the other absentee issues or policies. It just seeks to remove the permanent voter list. The reason being is, the primary reason being is, as a voter, when I choose to go vote, I go to vote and I make that initial action. I think that every election cycle, a voter should make that action, whether they want to vote in that election or not just be sent a permanent ballot. Plus, the transient nature of our society today can be a good reason why ballots get lost and don't go to the necessarily to the right post office box, and has created some confusion. The other thing too is, since it's new, if somebody clicks on the absentee ballot, if they become on the permanent absentee ballot, if they go to vote in person, they will not be allowed to.
All right, thank you very, very much. Do we have any questions for the patron?
Unless they bring their permanent absentee with them. But.
Very good. Do we have any questions from the committee for the patron? All right, anyone in the audience to speak in favor? Seeing none, I think we have Ms. Mary Ivy again for speaking in favor of the bill. Ms. Ivy, you back with us?
I feel that doing away with the permanent absentee list is beneficial. I worked the canvass in one of the local jurisdictions as a poll watcher, and over 1/3 of the provisional ballots that were processed were people that went to vote in person and were told that they requested and received an absentee ballot, and they didn't. Now, either somewhere along the line, they were accidentally put into the permanent list, and it created a lot of extra work for the people processing the ballots, a lot of frustration for the people coming in to vote. So if you have to every year reapply for the absentee ballot, that would be a help to everybody, including the registrars. Our situations change. I may have broken a leg and need an absentee ballot this year, and maybe next year I don't. So I think that removing the permanent absentee ballot list is a benefit to everybody.
All right, thank you, Ms. Ivy. And anyone in the audience to speak against the bill? All right. Seeing none, anyone online to speak against the bill? I don't think we have any. So, Delegate Weber, do you want any additional comments you want to add? Or
no.
Any other questions from the committee?
That's it.
We operate by motion.
Move to report House Bill 196.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to report House Bill 196. If everyone will please vote on the electronic voting board. And the bill reports with a vote of 5-2. All right, thank you, Delegate Weber. And I believe you have another. This is one that is the same topic that we covered fairly extensively in our last meeting. So we will we'll try to move quickly through this. But Delegate Weber, tell us quickly about House Bill 1090.
Well, Mr. Chairman, 1090 just simply reinstates the voter ID, that a voter must present a valid ID when they go to vote. The provision also states in a couple of sections about how one can get an ID with a picture on it, and also providing the registrars with the necessary machinery, et cetera, to be able to do so for anybody that would like to come get one to be able to vote. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible to get one, and to provide them a free cost, et cetera, so that everybody can vote. But it's just another method to verify that one person, one vote. That's it.
Okay. Again, we had several bills addressing this last time, and significant amount of testimony about that. So I'd ask, if you don't have any additional information from what we already heard, or if you did not have an opportunity to speak with us last week, that you would refrain so we can get right on through this. But I do have a couple of people signed up for this. First of all, any additional questions from the committee? Hearing none, anyone in the audience to speak in favor of House Bill 1090? And online, again, we have Dr. Claire Wheeler.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. Again, I would state that most places require photo ID for almost any encounter. Specifically, many of the members of the House of Delegates in the Virginia Senate require photo ID to come and speak with a delegate or a senator in person in their office. Photo ID has been polled. The need for it has been polled across the nation, and the response has been overwhelming in many, many polls that are completely unbiased, bipartisan. Polls show that over 80% of people favor photo ID as a means of making sure that the person who votes really is the person who's casting that ballot. I strongly support photo ID. It's free and it's easy. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Wheeler. And also have, again, Ms. Berg, have any additional comments?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. The League opposes this bill. I would like to emphasize that the bill purports to prevent or hinder fraudulent impersonation of voters. It is a felony to impersonate a voter, and it happens so rarely as to be insignificant. In Virginia's long history, photo IDs have been required for only 6 years, from 2014 to 2020. There is no evidence that photo ID makes any difference. That lastly, I would just say this requirement does make it harder for some people to vote. Those who do not have photo IDs, such as older voters and voters that do not drive, for them, the time and travel involved in obtaining a photo ID, even a free one, are obstacles to exercising their right to vote. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Ms. Berg, anyone else in the audience to speak against this bill? Any additional comments from the committee? We operate by motion.
Mr. Chairman, just a question. If they don't have a photo ID, can you tell us what your bill does so that they can still cast their ballot?
Well, it says, according to the legislation, there's hold on. They can still vote.
Cast a provisional ballot?
Yes, they can cast a provisional ballot.
And then produce
And then also in regards to the not being able to travel, most of those folks already do get absentee ballots mailed to them. And as well as, like I said, in the provisions in the legislation, they not only give the registrar the ability to be able to provide just a voter ID, but DMV as well and numerous other places.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Delegate Weber.
In regards to some of this stuff, I believe that, I guess, perception can be reality, and I want to eliminate some of the perceptions. And so voter ID, having people show their ID, eliminates a perception that's out there. That's one of the reasons why I put it in the bill.
All right. Thank you. Committee operates by motion. Have a motion and second to report House Bill 1090. All please cast your votes on the board. And House Bill 1090 reports a vote of 5-2. Thank you for your time, Delegate Weber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
This morning. And finally, we have Delegate Batten with House Bill 528 this morning. Delegate Batten, please tell us about your bill.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My House Bill 528 has 3 basic parts. The first part is it requires any organization that is sending an unsolicited absentee ballot application to provide information as to how the voter can actually return that application to their registrar's office. And it also requires them to state that the application is not being sent by an official government agency. The third party that sends that unsolicited absentee ballot application must also procure their mailing list from the Department of Elections, and it is limited to a list of registered voters here in the Commonwealth. And more specifically, they're required to use an updated list. So if a voter has already cast their ballot, then the voter list that they obtained from the Department of Elections would reflect that that person had already received a ballot, cast a ballot, and then they would not receive another unsolicited absentee ballot application. And last but not least, it also provides that the absentee ballot application is not pre-filled with the applicant's information. And I'm happy to take any questions from committee members.
All right, thank you, Delegate Batten. Any questions for the patron from the committee? All right, hearing none, do we have anyone in the audience to speak in favor of the bill? I do have a whole string of folks that are signed up to speak online in favor of the bill. We'll start with Mr. Walter Latham. Mr. Latham, are you with us this morning?
Yes, sir, I am. My name is Walter Latham. I'm the registrar in York County. I appreciate Delegate Batten putting in this bill. Frankly, I've always been concerned about limiting people's ability to send applications or communicate. The problem we've encountered, though, is that voters are confused and they don't know, why they're getting applications if they've already applied, how people have gotten their information, and it's performing a quasi-governmental function. And when you take on a quasi-governmental function, we hate to see our voters confused, and it undermines, I think, integrity or the perception of integrity in the process and discourages voters from participating. So I would ask that the subcommittee approve this, and VRAF supports, the Registrars Association supports this bill.
All right, thank you, Mr. Latham. Next, we have Ms. Allison Robbins. Ms. Robbins, you with us?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. My name is Allison Robbins. I'm the Director of Elections and General Registrar in the County of Wise, and I'm the Legislative Chair for the Voter Registrars Association. We thank Delegate Batten for working with us on this bill. We strongly support this bill and urge you to pass it.
All right, thank you very, very much. Dr. Clara Wheeler again, speaking
Yes,
of
sir.
this bill.
Thank you very much. I strongly support this bill, and I commend Delegate Batten for bringing it to the attention of the committee. The widespread use of unsolicited absentee ballot requests does confuse voters. They don't understand what this new mailing that they did not request is, and they are not clearly identified by the sender. So they think, the voter erroneously thinks, that the General Registrar or the Department of Elections has sent them the request. Several years ago, my sweet mother, who has at least 15 years before this came, had gone to her reward in heaven, and an absentee ballot request came to her address. And as a fairly educated member of the election community, it took me 10 minutes using a magnifying glass to discover that it had come from some bizarre third-party group. This is something that does confuse the voters, and it creates unnecessary burden on the voters. I would strongly submit that this is a great bill. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Wheeler. And finally, Ms. Mary Ivy, round us out this morning.
I agree with everything everybody said. I think one important part of this bill is that the applications, if they're being sent, are not pre-filled out. One of my friends received 4 requests for absentee applications. She was totally confused, and she was upset that whoever was sending them had all her personal information except for her birthday and social security number. On the other side, to echo what Mr. Latham said, our local registrar said she has to process every application.
Cool. I think you put yourself back on mute, Ms. Ivy. But I think we understand the solid support for this, so I think we can move on. And any comments from the audience in opposition to this legislation? We don't have anyone online signed up in opposition. Any additional comments? Or Delegate Batten, you want to give any final comments, or are we ready for a motion?
I thank the committee for their consideration.
What's the committee's pleasure?
Move to report.
Have a motion and second to report House Bill 528. Will everyone please cast their vote on the board? And the measure reports with a vote of 5-2. Thank you, Delegate Batten. And committee, that completes our docket, so the committee will rise. We are adjourned.